Hey guys, tonight on Table Talk, we are going to have a discussion and continue our discussion on influence. And tonight we're going to look at the disciple Andrew. And it's such a cool thing. Andrew in the Bible is known as being a bringer. He just keeps bringing people to Jesus. He brings his brother Peter. He brings the person who gives Jesus the 5 loaves and 2 fish. He brings these Gentiles to Jesus. All throughout Scripture, Andrew is known for using his influence in people's lives to bring people to Jesus. So Jason and the crew, they're gonna take it away. Hope you enjoy tonight.
Yeah, tell me what you want, let me hear that I'm the only one. You know that we won't make it out. We've heard it all before. It's alright. Hey, it's alright. Hey, it's alright. It's alright.
What was the
Or
meme or
something.
video that came out the other day where someone was talking about, or they videoed this guy skating with all this food and he comes over the curb.
First day or something?
Yeah, it just flies everywhere.
Yes.
I think that would be me if I was
That'd be
working
me.
for Sonic and I'd.
Honestly, I don't watch a whole lot of YouTube.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
Dude Perfect. I'll watch them.
Oh.
I know
Dude,
most of them, so it's
perfect.
Shout out to the crew.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Right.
Dude, perfect.
That's going.
They got some great videos, dude.
Yeah.
And they have over, I would say, 500,000
Oh,
subscribers,
yeah, for sure.
easy.
Yeah, it's like, it's a.
The other night, one of their videos showed up on my feed and it said it's been loaded for like all of 30 minutes. That had like
Oh yeah.
1.5 million
That's insane.
views or something like that.
They get.
Imagine uploading a video and getting 1 million
In,
views
like,
in 30 minutes.
minutes, yeah,
What
half an
are
hour.
you doing with your life?
So you're not a big YouTuber, huh?
No, I don't watch a whole lot of YouTube unless it's like random videos that just seem
Yeah.
interesting, you know?
What's one of your favorite go-tos?
Oh gosh, I have no idea. Back when I was in like 4th grade, I used to watch Vsauce. That's a
What?
meme. Yeah,
I don't know what that is.
it's like science videos and stuff.
I'm really intrigued now.
Yeah, about like black holes and all that.
I may not subscribe, but I may go check this out.
What is this?
I'm kind of like the old guy on the block where I'm watching a bunch of like landscaping, fertilizer videos.
Sir, oh, Minecraft, right? Oh, okay.
Huh? No. But I'm serious. I've kind of watched all these chemical videos on how to kill bugs and make your yard look really cool. So
And kudos to you. Your yard looks pretty cool.
thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Nice shout out. I think it's interesting when you're talking about just the idea of influence and how YouTube, even social media, has a lot of influence.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And people immediately just jump in and follow you and watch whatever you're putting out. Kind of gets me thinking about what are some ways that you guys see some other people that you follow that might have influence on you.
Okay.
Honestly, just like day-to-day life is a big one. Because like for me, I notice that if somebody does something nice for me, just like in a restaurant or something, it like makes me a lot happier and makes me like, oh, that puts me in
Right.
such a better mood, you know? And so then like that then makes me want to do something nice for somebody else. And so it's like that can have a lot of influence. And especially if like, I don't know, even road rage is one thing that I've noticed. Like I try my best to not have road rage, you know?
Are we all laughing because we're all guilty of it? Like, is that?
'Cause it's
I
like,
can confess.
I don't
sorry.
get too mad at that, honestly, whenever I'm on the road. But it's like when people really get mad over something that's like really small,
Yeah.
or if somebody's like
Right.
trying to cut somebody off or whatever, it's like that just puts the other person in a bad mood, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, then you're just spreading like negativity.
What's y'all's stance on turn signals? Should they be used?
Yeah, they should be used.
Amen.
If there are
Yes.
people,
Amen.
yeah, if there are people, if
the
like
big
you're the
one.
only one, you're good.
Yeah, but then people will use them, like you either use them the right way, you don't use them at all, or you use them like too good, where like there's 3 turns, but you'll use them and there's still this turn, but you don't take it. And then there's another turn, if you don't take that one, but you take the 3rd one.
That's the
It's
car
like-
that turned off their ways.
That's right.
Yeah, Anthony used Waves to get here, by the way.
That's right. Shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Waves and Sonic.
The official sponsor of Midweek Table Talk. Hey, guys, has there been a time in your life where you've showed up somewhere because you were invited?
Oh, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I've been invited to like a party one time, and I like didn't really know anybody except for one of my friends who like invited me, and it was honestly kind of awkward. I was like trying to have fun, but I was like, this isn't really my thing at the moment.
Sure.
But let me ask you this. Even think back to maybe even earlier in your childhood, and maybe you can talk about it now being a teen. How good does it feel when you are invited?
Oh, great.
Yeah, it feels good to be like included.
And then, especially on like who's inviting you. It's because like, I mean, if someone inviting you and like you think that person's pretty cool and they invite you to something, it's like, okay, so they see something in me, like they want me to be there. Like, yeah, for sure.
You know what I think about? I think about back to the childhood days in kindergarten and then first, second grade. We used to play kickball all the time, right?
boy.
And you know the situation with kickball. You have to have team captains split up
yeah. Pick each
and they
other.
had to pick.
Yeah.
Man, when they invited you and pointed to you to be on their team, and this is like the third or fourth pick, right? You know, you're the last pick. You get yelled at, you know.
No
got
shame.
that.
No shame.
Oh, yeah, right? But when they invite you to be a part, I mean, that's big.
Right.
What's the name of the guy in the NFL draft who's the last pick?
Oh, Mr. Irrelevant. Is that
Mr.
it?
Relevant. See, you can like
Yes.
totally redeem being the last pick in
Yeah.
elementary school's kickball or dodgeball. Be like, hey, I'm just Mr. and
Love
Mrs.
Mr.
Relevant right
Relevant.
here.
Isaiah Thomas, that's an example. I mean, that dude went on.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about just one of my biggest invitations of life. Maybe it was like, I think it was I was a senior in high school, and I was in Utah, and a friend back from Oklahoma invited me to come and join in for their prom. Just thinking
fun.
back about just one of my teen days, I'm like, how cool was it that I got to get on a plane and go to a friend's prom
That's cool.
with a lot of my former classmates. It felt really neat. I want to believe this. I believe she paid for my flight, y'all. That was a good friend. That was a good invite, and I enjoyed that.
That's cool. Yeah.
What's a big invite you've had in your life?
I mean, I would say the most relevant ones. Anthony was actually the one who invited me to Prestonwood. So like, I'm involved in Prestonwood because of that man right
Come
there.
on now.
Yeah.
Come on now.
I was at Reynolds. I went to lunch, and he would come to lunch and like just meet kids from Reynolds and like, you know, like advertise midweek Wednesday nights at Prestonwood and stuff. And so he invited me there, and it was like it was awesome because like, I mean, Anthony's a cool dude, right? So when Anthony invites you
Anthony
somewhere,
agrees
it's
to that.
like, right? It's like, oh yeah, nice. You know, I got invited by the Anthony Vargas, you know, the one and only.
Get out of here.
So that would be my biggest, for sure.
Appreciate that, dude.
Yeah.
I would just tag on to that. It wasn't church, but someone invited me in college to join and come over for this BSU event, which is Baptist Student Union. You know, I went to the lunch, got involved, eventually joined their student leadership in college, and grew my faith like never before. That is literally an invite I remember to this day.
Yeah.
That was so powerful. And it was just a friend saying, "Hey, come with me," and they just hung out with me when I was there, and I still remember it to this day, and it's had a huge impact.
It's just like, especially in our culture, being invited, it's awesome. It's a good thing.
It's
like,
everything.
Right. There's so many like bands of groups. Like I go to Prosper, and so like, you know, we have 4,000 students. Like, and of those 4,000 students, there's probably 200 like groups of friends. You know what I'm saying? So like, to get into one of those groups of friends by an invite, it's like in high school, you know, it's like everything.
It makes you feel like you're involved, that you belong.
Yeah.
Even think about just some common terminology about FOMO, right? I mean, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
I think that we all have a fear of missing out on what other people are doing or what we could be a part of.
Right.
So again, to be invited into something, hey, it feels like, hey, we belong. I think we can all recognize that at some level, everybody has influence. Whether it's good or bad, everybody has the opportunity to speak into somebody else's life.
Right.
By words or action.
Definitely.
But I think ultimately what we see is that with influence comes responsibility. Influence comes with responsibility, and ultimately, like, there's got to be some action as a result of influence. So one of the best ways to exercise our influence is that action item of inviting. Now, let's talk about just in church world just for a moment. We talk often about, hey, bring somebody, invite somebody. Why do you think we often use those words, some of that terminology, those action items?
Well, I mean, it's just to like spread the message. I mean, like, you know, God was, you know, and just Jesus, and I mean, when he came down to earth, like, he would invite he would go up to anyone and everyone. Like, he would go up to a poor man, he healed the blind dude, put the mud in his eyes, he went and washed. That dude was just sitting on the side of the street. He wasn't like a high priest or anything. So like, you know, it's always just as a Christian, inviting people to stuff and being so inclusive is just part of the Christian lifestyle. So like, to invite people to church and stuff like that, and just include, those people around you, no matter who it is. That's just I think it's just part of the Christian lifestyle. It's just the image of Jesus that we have to follow.
Yeah, and a big thing for that too is like being welcoming, because it's like, I feel like a lot of people who don't go to church, a lot of time they don't go because they don't feel like they'd be welcome there, because they feel like everybody's like much better than them. And so it's like, if you're inviting them there and showing that like you go and that you have like other people that go that you're friends with, then they feel welcome and they feel like, okay, maybe I can go because I know this guy,
Right.
So, an invitation, in a lot of ways, you're sharing an experience with somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you referenced a moment ago that Anthony invited you, and he welcomed you to come and share an experience with him. And even in this passage that we're examining tonight, in I believe it's John chapter 1, verse. Let me look at it real quick.
36.
Look at verse 39 for a moment.
Okay.
He said to them, "Come and you will see." So Jesus said, "Hey, come, and not only will you be there, but you're going to see something. You're going to experience something." And they came and they saw where he was staying and they stayed with him. And I love how there's power in an invitation. There's power in invitation. Landon, you talked about, inviting them to church, but I think it's even more than that. It's almost like, let's take it to the next step. Right. Because ultimately, what's our end goal? Is that we would hope in our prayers that people would be invited ultimately into a relationship with Jesus. Right. You have an experience like that in your life?
Well, right now, I got a new job at Handel's, which is like an ice cream place.
I love ice cream.
Yeah, and there's a girl there who I've been talking to, and like we've been, like bonding over conversation and like work jobs and stuff, and she's been really nice. But I don't know how it came up, but she was talking to me and she like asked me a question or something, and I brought up the church, and she like sounded surprised, and she was like, "Oh, you go to church?" But she seemed not in like a bad way. It was more of like like you seem like a real type of person, not her like perspective of the church seemed different than like how it actually is. And so I started talking to her some about the church, and she actually seemed like really interested in it. And so I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna probably be able to ask her at some point, if she wants to come sometime, because like she didn't even know. She was like, "Oh, what type of church is it?" And I mentioned that it was like a Baptist church, and I don't even think she heard about like Baptist. She was like, "Oh, what's Baptist?" Like I don't really know. Yeah. And so like she doesn't really know that much, and I was
Huge
like, "Whoa."
Opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I've been working on recently.
That's awesome. Yeah, when you ask that, man, like the invite is heavy. Like there is a weighted invite. When we ask someone to even come to church with us, I mean, what's on the line is them hearing and responding to the greatest news that's ever existed, right? The gospel. So I believe, that we have a responsibility with our invite, yes, but we can't lose that opportunity that we have with it. And we can't destroy it either, because I think what you said, Dodge, about being welcoming, imagine being opposite, right? That just completely destroys all influence that you have when it pertains to Jesus and his church. So I think when doing the invite, we got to be very personal.
I love what Dodge you talked about in a common setting. It was your job, right? Mm-hmm. Ice cream. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's like, you're positioned there for a reason. And to serve ice cream and to make a little bit of money, but ultimately the Lord's positioned you there to have an influence. Right. And you stepping into that influence has resulted in the action of maybe one day inviting this friend to come and join and see what's going on here. Hey, you can belong here. This is a place where you can fit in, a place where you can be changed, a place where eventually you can stand out and make a difference, right?
Yeah.
I really love that. See, I told you I hit the microphone every time.
I just did that too.
There we go. We'll get it out of our system here.
I've already done it like
twice.
twice.
I got a good point on. I can talk with some things we're doing in my school for.
Share away, man.
Inviting.
Tell us.
Yeah, so we're starting this thing. Me and my friend, we are kicking off this thing called Students for Salvation. Students for Salvation at PHS, and it's like a club because we kind of found out. It kind of goes along with the inviting thing. At my high school, Prosper High School, there's like 4,000 kids. and there's one like religious, you could call religious club organization stuff.
Okay.
And it's FCA, and it's Future Christian Athletes. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure the exact acronym. But it's kind of like just for athletes. Like if you're not an athlete, that's really not something you would go to. So we kind of felt convicted that our school didn't have like any sort of club that, what if you're in theater? Or, I mean, there's 4,000 kids, and maybe 300 of them are in athletics. What about the rest of them? So we're starting this club called Students for Salvation that's going to reach, the whole school. And
That's super cool.
Start like inviting that. We have like Instagram set up and all that stuff. So that's like our heart behind it, because we're like concerned that, for as far as inviting goes, we got to get everyone in there.
Right. So it's an opportunity to invite people to your club to get them to know Jesus, grow in their faith. And yeah, that's incredible.
So hold on. Andrew, remind us, how old are you?
Me? Oh, I'm 15.
You're 15.
Yeah.
In high school.
Reaching 4,000 people, man.
That's influence, man.
That's influence. That's how you
Well done.
steward well.
Well done, man.
We have to steward influence well, and that's how you do it, man. Good, kudos to you exercising that.
Well, I love this particular passage in John. Andrew, he couldn't let what happened to him just stay with him.
Right.
Talk about what does that mean to you when you see Jesus' life-changing influence in his life, and you see Andrew then go out and he shares with Peter, who we talked about last week in midweek, invites Peter, and now all of a sudden Peter's life is changed. I can't think of a sweeter time in life, apart from our own personal salvation moment, than there is to be able to share in that same experience with somebody else. Have you got to encounter a moment like that? Or, is there someone you're praying for? Like, you don't have to say their name, but I mean, just talk about the importance of this.
No, for sure. There's this kid that I had a Spanish class with him last year, and we didn't really have those conversations about religion, but one time I heard him talking to someone behind me at a different table, and they were just going into church and religion, that stuff, and he said that he really didn't believe the church was, to come down and he thought the church was a scam. He thought they collected offering money, because Jesus said so, which is what he would say, and we give the church money, and they just keep the money, and all we really have to do as Christians is follow the 10 Commandments. There's no need for a church. That's just there to get money. And so, I'm writing my Spanish, and I'm like thinking, like this is running back in my head, like, holy moly, like how could you like think that, Of course, he's raised different than I am, he's like been in different positions than I have been. And so that's one person I've been praying for a while, and I actually got to talk to him on the phone probably around 2 weeks ago or so. And I was digging into salvation. I asked him a question like, I was like, man, what's your view on salvation? And
That's a good question.
Yeah, for sure. And so I actually posted a sticker on my Instagram. It was like you could like answer it, and he like responded to it, and he said like, my view on salvation is that if you follow the 10 Commandments, if you do what the Bible tells you to do, you'll go to heaven. And, I just felt like, I was like, so I called him. I was like, hey, man, that's cool. I'm glad you responded to it. Thanks for reaching out. And I just tried to give him, like, my, view, salvation. And I was like, the 10 Commandments are there to, like, help us, like, follow the guidelines. But I'm like, and there's a connection, like a relationship connection with Jesus to be saved. I'm like, and I kind of shared my testimonies in beach camp and just, like, me being saved and stuff like that. So I won't go into, like, the whole conversation. But, like, it was, like, so much more. It's, like, probably one of the most religiously fulfilling things in my life was, getting to share what God's done for me to someone else.
Absolutely.
It's like, it's a big moment.
That's cool.
What are some ways you think you yourself or even students in general can better use your influence?
I mean, just be loving of people, honestly.
That's a good word right there.
Right.
Love.
Right. I mean, just love everyone. No matter what they look like. What you see. There's some people at PHS that walk by. And it's like, oh boy, like what's your story? I'm not like judging them off the bat, but it's like like I felt convicted of that like 2 years ago. I would see people like right off the bat, I would just judge them like, oh, he's got Yeezys on, he's rich. You know what I'm saying? And stuff like that. But like you just gotta reach out to people, get to know them. Get to know their heart. God created us in His image, and so we're beautiful people by heart, and just love them, That's kind of my view.
Yeah, I think that's super important. That's like one of the main things, honestly, I feel like with like sharing the gospel and everything, because it's like, if you're really loving to people, I feel like a lot of people will listen more with what you have to say, and it shows, because like I said before, I feel like a lot of people think of the church as it's very judgmental, you know, but you got to show them that it's like really not that, because that'd be a lot of the reason that some people wouldn't go to church, because they're like, no, I don't really like deserve to be there, because the people who go there really, you know, they're like perfect, and it's like, I'm not near perfect, you know? So I think that's one thing, is being loving, and then the other thing, honestly, is just like being real as well, because it's like, I think that's one of the main things I try to do also, because it's like, God sees sin the same, you know? So it's like, honestly, some people that you may see, some people that you may see that you think are, you know, that they like sin a lot more, it's like, they're just the same as you, really, you know? And so it's like, if you can show them and just like be real about like your life and like what you do wrong and everything, then it makes them feel a lot more comfortable, you know? And so it's like, the church won't be as scary if they can feel comfortable, loved, and accepted, you know?
Right, and who are we to judge?
Right.
We don't know the story of that person. We don't know where they're at, what they're dealing with, like you were saying. And, you know, God only knows the potential of what that person can do. You know, I think about the story we're talking about. Andrew invited Peter. Peter encounters Christ, and the rest is history. I mean, we see that in John chapter 1. Later on in Acts chapter 2, this guy named Peter is leading thousands to Christ. Like, we never know the potential of someone if we just make that influence to impact, right? So I think about that. Like, I think the ability to love others well with our influence is not to judge, but include and make sure that we're kind to them and living out the example of Christ that he said, love your neighbor as yourself, right? So I think that's very important when we're talking about influence.
That's a good word. Well, hey, guys, thank you for joining us tonight for the conversation. And I'm encouraged by just your testimonies and hearing what God's stirring up, even in an ice cream shop. We'll call it a shop, and then even what you're doing at school, what God's allowing you to do. And I think for all of us, we can always be reminded that when we encounter Jesus, ultimately, he's going to change us, and he's going to perfect us in his image, not our own. And as a result of that, he gives us influence to go and tell, but also to invite, so that Jesus may say, come and see.
I don't know about you, but I love hearing about how Andrew used his influence to keep bringing people to Jesus. But maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't necessarily have a relationship with Jesus. I don't know who this Jesus person is. And if you have any questions, or you'd like to talk to someone about who Jesus is and how he died on the cross for your sins, rose again on the third day, and wants a relationship with you, if you will text MADE NEW to 74788, we'd love to get in contact with you, to talk to you and have that conversation with you. But if you're also kind of thinking to yourself, well, Brian, I know who Jesus is, but I do have a prayer request, or I'd like to talk to someone about what's going on in my life. Hey, if you would text prayer request to 74788, and a staff member and one of our team members will get back with you, and we'd love to pray with you through that. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we want to challenge you this week to be a bringer and be using your influence to bring others to Jesus. We'll see you next week.